Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you are watching the Mojo Story. There are lots of developments happening in India's neighborhood. Now, India's military of late has been signaling, and that signaling has got sharper. In Bikaner, Southwestern Army Commander Lieutenant General Manjinder Singh said, "Army is now operating under a political new normal. Any act of terror will be considered as an act of war." That's basically what the government said at the time of Operation Sindoor as well. Now, Army Chief has reiterated that Operation Sindoor, that was launched in May as punitive payback for Pakistan backed terror, is still active, and India alone can decide when it will end. That's made very clear by the top leadership of the Indian Army. To get a sense and to understand this, we're today joined by an eminent panel. Let's introduce our guests. We're joined by Major General Dhruv Katoj. Welcome to Mojo Story, sir. And we're also joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri. Welcome to Mojo Story, ma'am. If I may start with you, General Saab, uh, we have heard this in the past also that Operation Sindoor is only suspended. It has not been called off. Is it very clear now that any act of terror here on will invite a very strong response from India? Not just that, but that response will come at a very, very short span of time. It will not be days altogether for that response to come about. That will come about very strongly and very sharply in a short span of time.
Thank you, Zafar. Yes, I think that is the implication now, and I want to put it into perspective. You see, the India's policy, as far as reacting to incidences of terrorism, etc., were concerned, was given the nomenclature strategic restraint.
Right.
Now, I've been giving this a great deal of thought. Why strategic restraint? And this was the fear that because Pakistan had nuclear weapons, we didn't want the conflict to escalate. So it was under this nuclear umbrella that Pakistan continued with impunity with acts of terror in Jammu and Kashmir and in other parts of the country. Now
Yeah.
imagine even after the parliament attack, such a heinous attack, you've attacked India's parliament, there was no reaction. After Mumbai, there was no reaction. And all this was put under what we call strategic restraint. And
Right.
Pakistan kept on operating it with impunity. Now, this actually changed for the first time in 2016, when, in response to the Uri attack, we said, okay, we are going to attack. And then you carried out surgical strikes. And more importantly, they were announced. You see, the very next day, the Indian Army's DGMO went public with that announcement in front of the media. Okay, this is what we have done. Now that became the new normal. From strategic restraint, we had moved to what I term as compellence, as I beg your pardon, as deterrence. So we
Right.
went on that, okay, this is supposed to be deterrence, that if you do something, we are going to cross your territory, and we are not concerned with the nuclear fallout.
Yeah.
So the nuclear bluff was called in 2016. Now what happens? You go 3 years later, and then Pahalgam takes place. I beg your pardon. Um, the
Pulwama,
attack in
Pulwama,
sorry,
Pulwama.
Pulwama takes place. My mistake. The attack in Pulwama takes place. Now that was unacceptable. And then in response to Pulwama, we did something much more than a surgical strike. You used the Indian Air Force for the first time after 1971, crossed into Pakistani airspace and destroyed a terror camp. That is again a part of the deterrence policy which was being followed. And
Yeah.
we thought that, okay, there will be some sort of, the lessons would have been learned. But they were not learned. And now Pahalgam takes place. Now, the question was, when Pahalgam took place, I've always considered it to be worse than even the Mumbai attacks and the Parliament attack, of the manner in which the targeting was done. It hit at the very soul of India. Now, this time when the targeting took place, it took place at multiple levels. You
Yeah.
first hit the terror camps, and then you hit the military targets. And now we have shifted to the policy which has shifted. I use the term compellence. From deterrence, we have shifted to compellence. We will
Yeah,
compel you to behave. And it has been amply clear by the Prime Minister the nuclear bluff will not work. But more importantly, along with the military measures, for the first time, the civilian measures also came into place, along with the Indus Water Treaty and
yeah,
putting restrictions on Pakistanis coming into India. Now it became a whole of India approach. This
yeah,
approach stands and it's the new normal now. This is
yeah.
what the general was referring to the new normal. I think if there is going to be a terror attack and we can trace it to Pakistani soil, this time we are not going to hit the terrorist camps. We are going to
Yeah.
hit at the sponsors of terror. It will be military targets across Karachi, across Pakistan. It doesn't matter where they hide, they will be hit. Zafar.
Right. But that's a very important point that, of course, India has now made it clear that there's no difference between a state sponsored terror and a non state actor. I think that's the most important point that has been said now. There is no difference between what used to happen earlier, that you say these are non state actors. They're not in the control of the state, they're not in the control of the Pakistani army. But that that entire theory has been changed now. Ambassador Veena Sikri, how significant is this change, this shift? And that Operation Sindoor has been suspended, it has not been ended, which means that if there is a terror attack, there will be a prompt response now.
Absolutely, and may I say that even in the one or two instances where the Pakistan side has tried something across the border, they have received a befitting reply. So I think that the government of India has shown that it is very serious about what it said, and not only in addition to what you're saying, as what General Dhuf Katoch has said about the compellence, there is
Yeah,
also this clear understanding that there is now no distinction between what was earlier the garb of deniability that Pakistan used, saying that these are
yeah,
non-state actors. And that deniability has been ripped away, and there is absolutely no difference. And any kind of attack which we know, we've seen, for example, that when the terror infrastructure was hit on May the 7th, senior Pakistan army officers attended the funerals of the innumerable terrorists who were killed, and they made it quite clear that these are one of us. The Pakistan army let it be known to the world that these are one of us. So that deniability has gone, and there is no difference now between these terror groups and the state which is sponsoring the terror groups. And I'd like to draw attention to one more point, which is actually
yeah,
very important. And that is that since the last 1 year, Pakistan has been carrying its state sponsored terrorism and its terrorist activities across the continent into Bangladesh. And
yeah,
they have, in fact, been trying their best to embed themselves with the Bangladesh army.
yeah,
And the ISI and the senior Pakistan army officers are
yeah,
now posted almost regularly. In fact, there's been a note recently that they want even this. The Pakistan High Commission in Dhaka to be strengthened. They want more brigadiers and colonels and support staff there from all the three services, and they are sending brigadiers on short-term assignments, posted with various divisions of the Bangladesh army. And we know that the kind of exchanges of senior army officers between Bangladesh and Pakistan has increased enormously. Recently, the number two of the Pakistan army, Asim Munir's number two, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he was there in Bangladesh very recently. Before that, even more senior officers, and they're being taken to forward areas. So we are keeping a close track of this, and they should know that there is no way to hide, because we do know also that the Pakistan ISI and the Turkey's MIT, their intelligence agency is called the MIT, they are
yeah,
working together in Bangladesh, fomenting Islamist uprising. In fact, what is
yeah,
happening in Bangladesh, that Mohammed Yunus has seen that in the last 1 year, ever since he took charge on the 8th of August 2024, the
yeah,
support for the liberal secular forces has not gone down. You have the support for the Awami League still existing. You have the support for the BNP, and they also attach high importance to the liberation of existing. So, seeing that this support is not going down, they're now whipping up. And Pakistan's ISI and Turkey's MIT are doing this aggressively. There are plans being circulated. There are talks of an Islamic Revolutionary Army. All kinds of discussions are there. There are tweets by people who are very close to Muhammad Yunus about this. So I think that Pakistan has to know that this too is being kept a very close watch on. And they should not think that if just they're keeping a watch on the Western sector with what Pakistan is doing there, we are also keeping a watch on the Eastern sector. And Asim Munir's threat that the next attack is going from the East has not gone unheard in India. And this is a very important point that Pakistan should be ready for.
Absolutely, and extremely important that you raised it. It's very pertinent to this discussion. General Katoj, the Sahid Shamsad Mirza, the second top-ranking army general of Pakistan, was in Bangladesh for an extended tour. He met with the Bangladeshi leadership, and he was presented with a book with a map. That map showed Indian states as part of Bangladesh, what is called as a Greater Bangladesh. Now, he was not a political leader. First of all, this presentation of map is very provocative, that you present a map which has states from other country. Now, and that is being presented to a military general of Pakistan. There is a lot of messaging in all of this.
Actually, Zafar, this general, nomenclature-wise, he's the joint chiefs of staff. So protocol, he's actually head of the army chief.
Right.
In terms of wielding of power, it is the
Yeah.
army chief who precedes even the prime minister of Pakistan. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the ground reality. But
Yes.
they made this sort of a structure in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Now, this actually, it wasn't a map which was presented. It was a book which was presented to him, on the cover of which was this map.
Uh,
Now, this map is a distorted map.
yeah.
And it was a deliberate act of provocation carried out by Bangladesh. It was deliberate. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it was designed to send a message to India that your Northeast is vulnerable. We have already spoken to the Chinese about it. Imagine, this man has actually had the gall to speak to the Chinese about it. He has made claims about the Northeast being vulnerable. Now, the point is, Operation Sindoor is not just applicable to Pakistan. In my view, it is equally applicable to Bangladesh, and any sponsor of terror is going to get it. For us to destroy Bangladesh and their military hardware won't take much time.
Yeah.
It won't take much time to destroy Pakistan's also. But for Bangladesh, I think they're in a very vulnerable position. But India is not going that path with Bangladesh yet, because the people of Bangladesh, a very large percentage, as the ambassador has very rightly pointed out, the Awami League support base, which is about 30%, is not with the Islamists. And the BNP support base, which I'm not sure what the numbers is, but it's a good 20 to 25%. They're also not with them. And then there are the other floaters in between. If a free and fair election is held today in Bangladesh, the Jamaat cannot win. That's the point. And because the Jamaat cannot win, it is my gut feeling that the elections are not going to be held in February as announced by the head of state. When we're looking at these things, Bangladesh is playing a very, very dicey game. Are they doing it at the behest of the Americans? I don't know. But you see, Yunus is certainly an American agent. He is an American man. He was in the United States. He has been given the Nobel laureate for various reasons. But ultimately, he was given it for the Grameen Bank. But the Grameen Bank was the biggest scam which this man carried out, where he stole the money of the poorest Bangladeshis. And for that, he was convicted. As far as I'm concerned, he's a convicted felon. And that is where he deserves to be. He deserves to be in jail. But the Americans have pulled him out and they made him the head of state. So he is going to follow American diktats. You are seeing a bit of that as to the way the Americans have moved into Chittagong, right? Trying to get onto the Rakhine state of Myanmar, as a pipeline. So all these are big power games which are being played out. In my view, Muhammad Yunus is doing it for his very survival, but he's an Islamist at heart, a hardcore Islamist. The Jamaat cannot win on its own. The BNP takes the support of the Jamaat to get into power. But I think within Bangladesh, they need to sort out the politics between the two major parties. How that comes about, we will see. Otherwise, Bangladesh is ruined. And if they do any terrorist acts from their side, the consequences to them will be very severe.
Absolutely. Ambassador Veena Sikri, want to turn your attention towards another thing, the problems within Pakistan. Now, we're seeing two things happening. One is the unrest in POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, that went on for many days. And then there was this crackdown on the TLP, which was, those protests were mainly happening in Punjab. And then there is a constant problem with the KPK and its war with Afghanistan. That's an entirely different thing. With so many problems at hand at home, how is Pakistan going about talking to Bangladesh, thinking about waging a war from the eastern front of India? It looks bizarre. The country is in such a disarray. There's a political instability. The government that is ruling that country has come about after election rigging. The leader who won the election is in jail, but they don't seem to be bothered about all of this.
Well, this has always been the pattern of Pakistan. The worse the internal situation, the more they throw themselves into external activities, particularly throwing themselves into the laps of the Americans. They've done this many times before. We saw Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and we saw what Pakistan did at that time. And this is a repeat situation. Absolutely, and they don't care because it's the welfare of the people of Pakistan is the last thing on the minds of the rulers of Pakistan. And the real rulers of Pakistan are the army. And we know that the army has taken every resource that is in Pakistan, including the land, including the water, they consider it as their birthright. So they've taken control of maximum amounts of land. They give themselves huge parcels of land every time you join the army and get a promotion. They take control of all the water. Even when the Indus Waters Treaty was not in abeyance, all the water was being used on the farms of these army officers and other officers in Punjab, and hardly any water. In fact, the Indus used to run dry. In the summer season. This was already happening. They can't blame it on India because it was happening already long before because of all the drawal of the water for Pakistan. So they are not bothered about the people. They are only bothered about the army staying in power. And the more the unrest is there in Pakistan, the more the army has its control on power. The more they have disturbances with their neighbors, particularly with India, the more the army remains in power. And now we've seen that even with Afghanistan, they have a huge amount of disturbances. In fact, when Foreign Minister Mutaki was in India, that very day, Pakistan was bombing Kabul because they wanted Mutaki to leave India and rush back to Kabul and so on. So they are just not worried at all about the people. And the greater the poverty, the more helpless the people of Pakistan are. And this is their situation today. There is no support for the government or for the army. You know that in Singh there's difficulties. You've talked about the difficulties in POK. They don't recognize the Afghanistan does not recognize the Durand line. They want it, they want all of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as part of Pashtunistan. All that is there. So now they're extending themselves to Bangladesh because they want to bring back the pre-1971 situation. And in fact, the entire talk of the rise of the Islamist regime in Bangladesh is being given out even by people in the Unionist regime that we want a caliphate, we want a caliphate, we want a khalifa, we want to be part of a caliphate. And this is what Turkey, for example, finds very attractive, because for them, this is exactly what they've been saying. I mean, their memories of the Ottoman Empire are just so very bright. So I think that Pakistan now, this time with the full support of Turkey, is really spreading itself. And I think that what they have, when you talk about the Northeast, I mean, they openly said it's not only this stylized map that was given in the book, but we know that even their own people have, during Pehla Baishakh in April this year in Dhaka University, there was similarly another so-called stylized map come, and when we protested, they said, no, this is only a work of art, etc. But we do know that they have always considered the Northeast as something that is part of their sphere of influence. But they don't. I agree with General Katocha. They don't know. They don't realize what's coming to them. Just because India has been showing so much strategic restraint, in Bangladesh, they should not think that we don't know what's going on. And as for Pakistan itself, I think that they should know that Operation Sindoor has been paused. It hasn't been stopped, and there is a very close watch being kept. I think America is ignoring all these Islamist oriented developments, whether it is in Bangladesh, whether it is in the rest of Pakistan, because each time that America has chosen to ignore these kind of Islamist developments and uprisings, it has always been to their own cost. They have always felt sorry about it afterwards. But in the meanwhile, because of the situation now between Pakistan and US, it's a different situation altogether.
I don't know whether they are ignoring it or they are encouraging it, because they know all of that is happening, Ambassador Veena Sikri. Uh, General Kattu, before I come to you, I really want to play that soundbite of the army commander. What he said about Operation Sindoor, it's very significant.
सबसे पहले तो सबका शुक्रिया, आप यहाँ पे आए हैं हमारी एक्टिविटी को देखने। और ये एक्टिविटी आप जो देख रहे हैं, ये आज की जो नई हमारी न्यू नॉर्मल है, उसके ऊपर ये बनाया गया है। क्योंकि न्यू नॉर्मल के मुताबिक कभी भी हमारे देश के अंदर आतंकवादी हमला होगा तो उसको एक लड़ाई का एक्ट माना जाएगा। और आर्मी, इसका मतलब है कि हमारे को हमेशा उस लड़ाई के लिए तैयारी रहना है और उसके लिए जवाब देने की कार्रवाई के हमारे को काबिलियत पूरा करना है। इसके अंदर बहुत सी नई टेक्नोलॉजी इक्विपमेंट आई है, बहुत से नई कैपेबिलिटीज़ आई हैं, जो कि हमारी यूनिट्स के अंदर हमने उसको भर्ती किया है और उसके लिए हम ट्रेनिंग कर रहे हैं। तो आज जो आप देख रहे हो, एक बहुत छोटा हिस्सा है कि बहुत सी एक्टिविटी चल रही है, जिसके लिए हमने इसका आज आपको एक छोटा डेमोस्ट्रेशन दिखाया कि किस तरह से ऑल आर्म्स का इकट्ठा होकर दुश्मन के ऊपर हमला करना है। उसका एक डेमोस्ट्रेशन आपको फायरिंग रेंज पे दिखाया। जैसे कि मैंने पहले बताया, हमारा फोकस है मैक्सिमम ट्रेनिंग नाइट को हो, ताकि जो लड़ाई लड़ने की क्षमता है हमारे सोल्जर्स में, उसका नाइट ट्रेनिंग बहुत अच्छा होना चाहिए। और हम 70% ट्रेनिंग नाइट को कर रहे हैं और 30% ट्रेनिंग डे टाइम पे कर रहे हैं। अभी आपके कोई सवाल है तो ऐसा ना।
You heard it, General Saab. There can be no clear statement than this. That they're saying that we army is ready. They are preparing. They are doing their preparations, their trainings in the night. This is 70% in the night, 30% in the day. Technology is operations. Whenever there is a terror attack. Now, why is all of this happening? My sense is that they are ready. Whenever there is a terror attack, it may not be 15 days of pause. Then India will retaliate. It will be prompt retaliation, because the Operation Sindoor is just suspended. It is a new operation will not be started. It will be the same operation that will be turned on again.
The way I understand it now, regardless of whether we are calling it Op Sindoor or a post-Op Sindoor operation,
Yeah.
the timelines have changed. I just want to give this a slight historical context.
Yeah.
Earlier we had, it used to take a very long time for the Indian Army to deploy in the forward areas, which is why we started the cold start doctrine, in which our troops were moved to the forward areas. The static units were moved to the depth areas, and the active formation, they were moved closer to the borders, so that you could start the operation within 72 hours. That was the new doctrine, the cold start doctrine, that we'll be able to very, very quickly start operations. Now, the situation, we are not going to do that anymore. Now, warfare itself has changed. We don't need to send aircraft across to Pakistan the way we did in Balakot. It's not required. Yeah. Your aircraft flying anywhere from India can hit any target in Pakistan. And that is the change which has come about with missiles and with air power, with our own ground resources and with naval power. We can hit Pakistan anywhere, anytime. And it doesn't require the mobilization of troops. The mobilization of troops can take place sideways. So I think that change is tremendous. And the second part of it is, because obviously you will say the enemy can do likewise. I think we have got our air defense capability all sorted out. That we have seen in Op Sindoor, how beautifully it took place, where 100% of what they threw at us was neutralized. But they don't have that capacity. We destroyed their airfields, which most of them are still not operational. So this is a new doctrine. India has got the strength and the capacity to pursue it. And whether the world accepts it or not is just too bad. India is going to do this. And the general has very clearly stated it. He would not have made the statement unless he was 100% certain that he has the political backing for it. So we have the political backing. Ultimately, war is really a politics by other means. And this is, if the army is saying so, it has there is that synergy between the policies of the government, the political authority, the administration, and the military. And I think all of this has converged together to give us that power, which has changed, which I will say, which has changed the complexion of warfare henceforth. And now we are not going to wait for 15 days or 20 days. It could be as early as a few hours, or 24 hours or 48 hours, if not within minutes of something happening. Zafar.
Right. Well, that's an important point. And coming to the last section of our discussion, Ambassador Veena Sikri, I want to ask you about Pakistan's situation with Afghanistan, with the Taliban. We know that things are very bad there. They have been trying to put in a ceasefire in place. There is a ceasefire, but it's an extremely fragile ceasefire. Taliban wants them not to violate their airspace. Pakistan says that Taliban's TTP's bases are in Afghanistan. Afghanistan says that ISIS bases are in Pakistan. But on the whole, the situation is very bad. Pakistan and Afghanistan are not seeing eye to eye. They had two rounds of talks, and now they're going for a third round because no agreement could be reached. I can't understand when there's problem internally. There are so many agitations that are happening. There is a small war that took place with Afghanistan. There's no agreement. But as you put it rightly, perhaps this is what helps the military to thrive on. But for how long? Because after all, these are not easy situations. Now, on one hand, uh, they have problems with us. On the other hand, Afghanistan, they're going into a war with Afghanistan. Can they really sustain it in the end with a broken economy?
Of course, they always, that's why I said, when they find themselves in trouble, by throwing themselves into the laps of the Western countries, they hope to get the continuing loans from the IMF and World Bank, and they hope to, stay out of the FATF and so on. But certainly, I would say that with Afghanistan, that when Taliban 2 government came to power, Pakistan was perhaps the happiest country. They thought they had got back their strategic depth after 20 years, and that they would then be able to, be much more comfortable with their operations with India. But this has been, and of course, we all saw that image of the ISI chief rushing to Afghanistan and showing being there in Kabul very proudly, etc. But they have come up with a rude shock, and they have realized that Afghanistan is no longer their strategic depth. In fact, I must tell you that even at the people-to-people level, because I've had my own group, South Asia Women's Network, which has both Pakistan and Afghanistan as members, I have seen that at the people-to-people level, the animosity between Pakistan and Afghanistan is amazing. I mean, it far outrates anything between Pakistan and any other country, including India. So having seen the strategic depth in Afghanistan gradually disappear. That is why now they're putting all their forces in Bangladesh. They are seeking strategic depth in Bangladesh now. And they have now turned their attention entirely to taking control of that area. And because of, Muhammad Yunus being backed entirely by the Jamaat-e-Islami, he's the puppet of the Jamaat-e-Islami. And Jamaat-e-Islami has its connections fully with Pakistan. And now Pakistan has brought in Turkey as well. So they are trying to do this way and trying to make sure that in Pakistan, that in Bangladesh, their strategic depth will remain permanent, and so they want to do this Islamic uprising, the Islamic Revolutionary Army, destroy the secular credentials of the Bangladesh army, and it's terrible what they're doing. But it's all a reflection of the fact that in their western sector with Afghanistan, they really have failed miserably. And I think even these talks, which are being mediated by Turkey and mediated by Qatar and others, they're not getting anywhere because Afghanistan is quite determined to maintain its own independence. And they say that TTP is not our problem. This is Pakistan's internal problem. This is the creation of within Pakistan. Why are you asking us about it? You look after it yourself within your own borders. So, and then they're saying that you are sending this other group across to us, the IS and all that. So it's a very difficult situation. I don't see any early end. I do not see an early agreement between Pakistan and Afghanistan. In fact, the moment there's a difficulty, then Pakistan sends more of their displaced Afghanistan back into Kabul, and there's more difficulty, there's more uncertainty, and there's more, internal economic, difficulties for Afghanistan. It's a very difficult situation there. I don't see an early situation coming up at all, early situation in sight at all.
Last word to you, General Sir, but before that, I would want to play a small soundbite of a Talibani militant having a message for Asim Munir. Now let's hear
आप
what he
मर्द
said.
है कि अगर आपके सीने में मर्द का दिल है, आपने वाकई जो है अपनी माँ का दूध पिया है, तो हम इंशाल्लाह को आज आएंगे। फिर आप इतनी से जो है मेहरबानी करें कि जो आम फौजियों को आप डेढ़ वक्त इनकी तरह देखते हो, इनके बजाय आप खुद भी आया करें, ताकि हम आपको जंगों का मजा चखाए, ताकि हम आपको ये बताए कि जंग कैसी लड़ी जाए।
General Katoch, the point is Afghanistan is also called as the graveyard of empires. Now, there is a reason why it's called a graveyard of empires. Whether the British, whether the Soviet Union, whether the American, the huge big powers, world powers, couldn't really take their freedom. Now, Asim Munir and Pakistan, how do they ever expect okay, they're in close proximity with that country, but how do they expect that a country with a people like this, there's no army, entire population is army, how do they expect that they will control them?
You see, Zafar, when I look now, I'll give you my military perspective.
Yeah.
You know, if a conventional war takes place between Pakistan and Afghanistan, Pakistan wins. But the question is, what do they do after that victory? They can't hold that land. Holding that land will destroy Pakistan. They can't do it. So ultimately, the battle is going to be raged along the Durand line.
Yeah.
Now, if it's going to be raged along the Durand line, that is where the Pakistanis are deployed and the Afghanis are doing hit and run. Every day they're losing 5-6 soldiers.
Yeah.
This is a war which Pakistan will always lose.
Yeah.
They have got absolutely no hope or in hell of winning it. Their only chance is having a diplomatic rapprochement with the Afghans, which the Afghans are not going to accept because they want their territories, the Pashtun territories, back. And these Pashtun territories go way back, to the great game which was being played in the 19th century, where they wanted to keep the Brits wanted to keep the Russians out, and they took this part of the Pashtun territory and they merged it with Pakistan. Now, that historical injustice has to be rectified. That is what the Afghans are demanding. And I think at some point of time, they will get that demand. There can never be peace with Afghanistan and Pakistan. There may be Muslim countries, they may be Sunni Muslims, but you see, the ideological divide goes beyond religion. It is something which has got to do with the intrinsic nationalism of the Afghan people, which transcends anything else. So, which is why Pakistan is in very, I would use the word hot water. They can't win this war. And I'm not saying that the Afghanis will win it, but the Pakistanis will bleed very, very badly and they will get no gains at all. And I think they have realized that, which is why they went for the peace treaty.
Right. And it's also a fact that no regime in Kabul has ever accepted Durand Line as the border. Perhaps that's what Pakistan expected, that if Taliban comes to power, then they might in fact accept it as a border, as a gesture for Pakistan, who has always supported it. Pakistan has been backing Taliban. In fact, they rather started Taliban in the first place, but that has not happened. As you say, that all all Afghans are very clear about it, that this is not the border, and that's why they call it Durand Line. If you see that agreement in Qatar, they ensured that there was a change in that line to remove the line of border because they don't think this is a border. So that is a perennial problem with Pakistan. And how is Pakistan going to deal with it? Obviously, maybe through a diplomatic measure, there might be some resolution. But if they're going at war with Pakistan, as Khwaja Asif, their defense minister, says, then they should also know that nobody has ever won a war with Pakistan, with Afghanistan, any country that's gone. We remember those visuals just a few years ago when the American that aircrafts went off. The way that they left Afghanistan, there were people climbing on those aircrafts as those aircrafts were moving out. Now that's a fact, that's a reality. It's not so old. Everybody remembers it. I don't know what sort of a delusion Pakistani army is in when they think that they can open up multiple fronts and still get their way. I don't think that is possible. Thanks so much, Major General Dhruv Katoch, for joining us, and thanks so much, Ambassador Veena Sikri, for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts. Thanks to our viewers for watching the Mojo Story. Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.